Or I know it's getting late, but I'll do one more from Mark. I generally agree with your podcast. I listen to your podcast, and I generally agree with your views, but I find your and Ben's practice of vilifying the, quote, far right, or those to the right of yourself, as being equally evil and vile as the left, self-serving and annoying and false. You never identify who these far-right folk are, and if you do, say Trump, you dislike some general and subjective facet. I don't need you to try to constantly demonstrate how even-handed and fair you are, how yours is a position of moderation. Mine isn't a position of moderation. I'm a right-winger. The Nazis were bad people, but they were socialists. They were on the left, not the right. The KKK were bad people, but they were on the action arm of the Democratic Party. They favored slavery, not freedom. The groups espousing racial supremacy in Europe and the USA are identity political groups who aren't allowed to join the leftist identity politics parade because they are the wrong color, sex, or sexual practice. They certainly aren't conservatives of any variety at all. Just tell the truth. Don't virtue signal by tacitly accepting leftist propaganda that what are in fact leftist or leftist identity politic groups are far right. They aren't conservative or pro-freedom at all. Just because the left calls Antifa anti-fascist doesn't make them so. Mark, I'm sorry, I have to disagree with this. I really do. And first of all, I don't think I'm virtue signaling. My virtue just radiates off me. I don't need to virtue signal. It's like a light that just gleams around me. So I don't have to virtue signal. Here's where I disagree. When I'm not speaking for Ben at all, so Ben, you'll have to address himself. But when I'm speaking of far-right or alt-right people here, I'm talking about the anti-Semites and the people who have said horrible, horrible things to both Ben and me when we have criticized Donald Trump. Their anti-Jewishness, and some of them are racist. In fact, some of them do talk about the blacks, and when they have that phrase cuck, it means a white man who likes to see his wife sleep with a black person, which I think is an inherently racist concept, that anybody who disagrees with Donald Trump is somehow that person. I think there are racists on that side, and I think those are right-wing positions. But here's where I disagree with you. Go through this history, and even the way you say it, shows where I think you're wrong. It says the Nazis were bad people, but they were socialists. They were on the left, not the right. The Nazis were, in fact, socialists, but they were also nationalists. They were also connected to the right in many ways. They were also conservative in the sense of trying to bring back, conservatives are always going back into the past, trying to conserve something, bring back a fantasy idea of Germany. It is very hard to place the Nazis. They were a psychopathic philosophy. The Ku Klux Klan were now, see, then you switch terms, right? Now suddenly you say the Ku Klux Klan were Democrats, and that's true. They were Democrats, but that doesn't mean that they were not conservatives. They were trying to conserve the Jim Crow, the slavery days, and the inequality in the South. So they were Democrats. Yes, it's true, but they were conservative Democrats. And one of the things that happened when the South went Republican is the racists were basically purged, but the conservatism remained. And these people were conservative about racism. So I think you have to call them the KKK. They were Democrats, but they were also conservatives. You can't say somebody is not a conservative because he's a socialist and this person is not a conservative because he's a Democrat. Those are two different things. Democrats, Republicans, and conservatives and liberals. The groups espousing racial supremacy in Europe. See, the thing is, Europe and the USA have different kinds of conservatism. We are trying to conserve the Constitution, which, as you say, is freedom-loving. And so we are not the same as people in Europe. Some people in Europe, not all, but some conservatives in Europe are trying to preserve the racial makeup of their countries. This is getting more and more rare over there, I'm happy to say, but it still exists. It's still there in Eastern Europe. And sometimes it hides behind a rational attack on Islamic philosophy, which is perfectly fair. You can attack Islamic philosophy and therefore limit the number of Islamic people you bring into your country, but sometimes people are hiding racism behind that. Here's the thing. Look, American conservatism, as I see it, as I define it, is the defense of the Constitution. And that's what you're saying. What you're saying is you believe in freedom, you don't believe in identity politics, and I agree with you. That is American conservatism. But there are people on the far right who are bigots. There are people on the far right who would oppress in the name of conservatism as the left oppresses in the name of leftism. There's no philosophy on earth that guarantees goodness, right? No matter where you go, there's always a version of every philosophy that is evil. Why? Because people are sinful and they're flawed and they're broken. So when you stand for conservatism, one of the things I do when I give speeches a lot of times is I'll start by saying, this is what I mean. This is what I stand for as a conservative, because these names get passed around, you know? These names get passed to different versions of different things. In America, as I see conservatism, is an attempt to defend the Constitution and its wonderful system for setting power centers off each other so that the people remain free. And insofar as that is conservatism, I agree that the people who are opposed to that are not conservatives, but some of them are on the right and some of them are trying to conserve things that you and I, thank God, don't want to conserve. And that's why we talk like this. We are making sure that the house is clean. Even William F. Buckley did this. William F. Buckley chased the anti-Semites out of the conservative movement and therefore made it the terrific movement it has since become. And that is a good thing to do. It is a good thing to clean your own house.